I'm John Cunningham, and welcome to another episode of Small Stocks, Big Money. For those of you new to the show, RedChip Companies is an investor relations, media, and research firm focused on emerging growth companies. Our unique platform combines global multimedia with traditional investor relations, reaching investors around the world. Today's show features interviews with executives of two companies. First up is Soligenix, stock symbol SNGX on the NASDAQ. Soligenix is a late-stage biopharmaceutical company developing innovative treatments for rare diseases with unmet medical needs. The company's primary focus is on its specialized biotherapeutics business segment, which is responsible for the development of Highbright, a novel treatment for T-cell lymphoma. The company has successfully completed a phase 3 study for Highbright and is now negotiating a confirmatory phase 3 pivotal study design with the FDA. We'll learn more when we speak with the president and CEO later in the show. Next up is ASP Isotopes, stock symbol ASPI on the NASDAQ. ASP Isotopes is an emerging leader in isotope enrichment technology with wide application potential across a variety of industries. The company expects to be a leading supplier of non-nuclear enriched isotopes, generating over $150 million in EBITDA per annum by 2028, and they've already secured multiple long-term supply agreements with customers globally. We'll learn more when we speak with the CEO later in the show. Now, before we get to our first interview, our quote of the week, it comes from the book Small Stocks, Big Money. If you want to invest in the microcap space, buy companies, not stocks. If you buy stocks, the daily fluctuations and lack of liquidity will drive you crazy. This quote comes from Byron Roth, CEO of Roth Capital, featured in Chapter 7 of Small Stocks, Big Money. This is a book written by RedChip CEO Dave Gentry and has exclusive interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Get a digital copy on Amazon today for just $18. Quick question. Are you interested in gaining a deeper understanding of the companies featured on Small Stocks, Big Money? If so, be sure to join us for our exclusive investor webinars. This is your opportunity to gain an in-depth look at our featured companies and where you can speak directly to management, giving you tremendous insights straight from the source. Visit redchip.com/events for a full calendar of upcoming webinars and register today to secure your spot at the next event. Now let's get started with our first interview today with Soligenix.
Hello, today we have Dr. Chris Shaber, CEO of Soligenix, trading on the NASDAQ under the ticker symbol SNGX. Chris, thanks for being back.
Thanks for having me, Craig. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. You recently reported top-line results from that phase 2A study in psoriasis patients. Chris, what can you tell us about the results and how big is the market opportunity for this therapy?
Given that psoriasis is a difficult-to-treat chronic skin cancer with no cure, characterized by patches or thick plaques on the body, the ongoing SGX-302 phase 2A trial is an early-phase fact-finding study in mild to moderate psoriasis patients. In this study, we are looking to learn as much as possible about key parameters such as patient characteristics, optimal drug dose, and duration of treatment. I am pleased to say that so far, we are continuing to demonstrate some promising results in this small pilot study. SGX-302, or synthetic hypericin, the active ingredient, has not only demonstrated that it has biologic activity in this disease, but is also showing some early evidence of clinical success in impacting key efficacy markers in the second cohort of evaluable patients. 2 of those patients reached a disease status of almost clear, represented by what is called an investigator global assessment score of 1, which is considered the standard clinical measure for treatment success in psoriasis. In addition, the Psoriasis Activity and Severity Index score, another well-characterized measure of treatment success for patients in the second cohort, at a mean drop of approximately 50%, over a 18-week treatment period. Just as important as the key endpoints, SGX-302 therapy was well tolerated by all patients with no drug-related adverse events identified. So, as you would imagine, we remain cautiously optimistic that SGX 302 can serve a meaningful potential role in mild to moderate psoriasis, which is a very large market opportunity in excess of $1 billion worldwide.
Chris, turn now to Behçet's disease, where Soligenix is also active. You have recently received investigational new drug clearance from the Food and Drug Administration for a phase 2 trial in Behçet's. What can you tell us about the program, and what milestones should investors expect in 2024?
Behçet's is another chronic disease with no cure as well. It's an orphan disease, so much smaller. It's characterized by ulceration of the mucous membranes and skin, with up to 18,000 people in the US and as many as 1 million people worldwide affected by this incurable disease. In this disease, we are developing another molecule, SGX 945, which is the research name, or rusfertide, to treat the aphthous ulcers in a phase 2A study. This study is set to begin later this year, probably in the second half, and we should have results in early 2025, the first half. The market opportunity here for SGX 945 in this orphan disease is as much as $200 million globally.
Chris, you're always so enthusiastic when talking to us here at RedChip about upcoming milestones. Now share it with our audience. In the next 12 to 18 months, what can we expect?
In addition to the SGX 945 phase 2A trial in Behçet's, potential investors can expect more clinical data coming from the phase 2 study in psoriasis with SGX 302 over the next 12 to 18 months. And importantly, we are working towards final regulatory agreement on our second confirmatory phase 3 trial with Hybrid in the treatment of cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, or CTCL, a rare and chronic skin cancer, where we've already achieved positive and statistically significant clinical results in the first phase 3 clinical trial. Assuming timely agreement on a feasible design, we could be initiating this second phase 3 study with Hybrid later this year as well. In addition, we also remain active in our heat-stable vaccine programs under our Public Health Solutions business segment and expect potentially to have more data available with these programs as well. Maybe one last note, Craig, we also remain active on the business development front and are currently looking at all strategic options. While I can't make any promises or commitments here, I will say that we are active and in a number of discussions.
Turning now to Hybrid again. An article on Hybrid was recently published in Frontiers in Drug Discovery. That article emphasized the ability of Hybrid to address the unmet medical need in patients with early-stage cutaneous T-cell lymphoma. Can you recap for us, Chris, the previous phase 3 results for Hybrid, and can you give us an update on the upcoming confirmatory pivotal phase 3 study?
Of course. At a high level, in the first phase 3 study with Hybrid and CTCL, we demonstrate a statistically significant improvement in reducing the size of the cancerous patches or plaques on the skin after a short treatment of just 6 weeks with Hybrid. Importantly, the longer we treated, the more robust the response, demonstrating overwhelming statistically significant reductions in skin lesions after 12 and 18 weeks of treatment. As you noted, these results are published, so if anyone would like to get more details, I would urge you to go to our corporate website where there is a great deal of information available here. Regarding an update on the second confirmatory phase 3 trial, as I noted earlier, we are in discussions with both the FDA and EMA on trial designs for the second confirmatory trial with Hybrid, and assuming timely agreement on a feasible design, we could be initiating this second phase 3 trial with Hybrid later this year. Again, having previously demonstrated this drug's profound effect in treating this disease, CTCL, in the first phase 3 study conducted.
Chris, the floor is yours to give us that essential value proposition. Tell our investors, why should they take an interest in Soligenix right now?
We've covered a lot of it during this short interview. Soligenix is a late clinical stage biopharmaceutical company focused on developing and commercializing therapies to treat orphan diseases and areas of unmet medical need. Given our pipeline is later stage with multiple clinical programs in phase 2 and phase 3 development, we have a number of shots on goal that provides a level of de-risking to our portfolio. Not that Soligenix is without risk, but reduced risk given that we demonstrated results in a number of trials and disease indications. A further note, we also work to manage our cash burn very carefully and have cash runway that currently takes us into the fourth quarter of this year.
Always great speaking with you, Dr. Shaber. Thanks again for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Now, to get more information on Soligenix, visit SNGXinfo.com. You can also call 1-800-RedChip to speak to a specialist if you have any questions. Now let's move on to our next interview today with ASP Isotopes.
Hello, today we have Paul Mann, CEO of ASP Isotopes, trading on the NASDAQ under the ticker ASPI. Paul, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be back.
ASP Isotopes, an advanced materials company dedicated to developing technology and processes to produce isotopes in multiple industries. Paul, start with a brief overview of your operations.
Now, we have two technologies we're developing for the enrichment of isotopes, both of which originated from South Africa. One of our technologies is being used in 2 plants in South Africa today. Both of those plants will start producing free cash flow during the first half of this year, and that should really put us in a strong position to really grow the company from there. The second technology will probably more kind of start producing isotopes in the 2025-2026 timeframe on a much larger scale. And we started this company about 3 years ago. When we identified this technology in South Africa, we realized the need for more isotope enrichment in the world. And we recognized this could really change how many materials that are really needed in today's society and future societies, how they're produced, where they come from. So we bought the assets out of bankruptcy about 2 years ago. It's taken us 2 years to get to where we are now, and we're really looking forward to starting to generate our first free cash flow this first half year.
Speaking of your accomplishments, 2023, your first full year as a company on the NASDAQ, a big year. Could you elaborate on some of the key milestones that you achieved last year and how those accomplishments are aligning with the company's long-term vision?
Yeah, wow. So 2023 was a big year for us. So yeah, you're right. It was our full year on NASDAQ as a publicly traded company. So I guess, right at the start of the year, we started our first plant up. So we commissioned our first plant. So when you think about it, in less than 15 months from forming the company, we started our first plant up. And that's now ready to start producing commercial product, which will come through in the first half of this year. We made a lot of progress towards our second plant, and that will start up this year and start generating free cash flow as well. In terms of contracts, we actually signed a couple of really important contracts for the company last year, both with North American customers. And North America's got a huge shortage of isotope enrichment capabilities, so it's great for us to be supplying North American customers with enriched isotopes. The first was for a carbon-14 contract, and the second was for an undisclosed metal. In total, they're about $11.5 million of revenues, minimum, maybe more. So that was another major achievement. And I guess the final major achievement was us in forming a subsidiary called Quantum Leap Energy. And there's a huge need for new sources of enriched nuclear fuels. The world is really short of enriched nuclear fuels, and we'd like to help solve this problem. So, we signed 2 MOUs with US nuclear companies to supply them with enriched uranium in years to come. And actually, their total needs are over $30 billion over the next sort of 10, 15 years or so. And so to sign those MOUs and get that company formed and start the regulatory processes in various countries to build those plants, that, I guess, was the final major milestone for the year. But yeah, a really big year for us, 2023.
Excellent news. I want to get to that catchily named Quantum Leap Energy, which you just mentioned. You formed it last year. How does ASP Isotopes plan to impact the nuclear fuel market with Quantum Leap Energy, particularly, Paul, regarding small modular reactors and their benefits?
So that's a hell of a question. I could spend all day talking about that. But to give you the Reader's Digest version, small modular reactors are likely the future of nuclear energy. It basically takes production line economics into the nuclear reactor world. So it really brings down the cost of nuclear energy, whereby emerging market countries can afford to use it. And you're only going to change the outlook for the carbon emission of the world if you can make renewable energy cheap enough for emerging markets to use. You have to have that. And right now, that's not really possible with nuclear energy. SMRs allow that to happen. The problem from SMRs is they require a fuel called HALEU, high assay, low enriched uranium. And right now, there is no Western producer of that fuel. So Quantum Leap Energy's goal is to create the nuclear fuels the world will need in the future, specifically HALEU and lithium-6, which will enable nuclear fusion. So on HALEU, which is our immediate need, or the world's immediate need, our goal is to start plants up in the next few years to enable SMR companies to start production before the end of the decade using HALEU that we produce. And our goal is to produce HALEU at a price point that allows it to compete with a green advantage rather than a green disadvantage over the cost of carbon-based energy. So that's our goal. We're working hard towards that. We're talking to multiple governments about where we're going to build our first plant, and we hope to have more news on that in the first half of this year.
Now, Paul, as you know, there are many challenges relating to the global supply chain for isotopes. How does ASP Isotopes plan to establish itself as a reliable supplier of critical isotopes given those challenges? And number two, how big is the market opportunity you would be addressing?
Well, 85% of stable isotopes are currently produced by Russia. And in terms of new isotopes needed to enable technologies of the future, such as quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and new forms of medicine, there really aren't any producers of those isotopes right now today. So we intend to fill that gap in either replacing current Russian supply or bringing new isotopes to the market. It's actually been a pretty easy discussion with potential customers because when you think about it, they're looking for long-term suppliers of critical materials in their supply chain, and they want a reliable supplier who can deliver those to them on time and on spec. And so, it's actually been a pretty easy conversation with those customers. Our first two plants will start up in South Africa during the first half of this year and start producing free cash flow. Our future plants are more likely going to be in Iceland, where we benefit from very cheap energy. And we're actually asking our customers to make large down payments to own parts of those plants to make sure they have access to those isotopes. So if we can produce isotopes at the lowest cost in the world and we have long-term supply agreements with buyers of isotopes, I think we're putting ourselves in a great position for the longer term.
Management is key to the success of smaller cap companies, as you know, Paul. Who are some of the key players on the ASP Isotopes team?
Yeah, listen, we've got a great management team here who collectively have spent hundreds of years involved in isotope enrichment in South Africa. We have about 70 employees in South Africa. Over half of those have got advanced degrees. We've got over 10 PhDs working for us in areas of nuclear physics and chemical engineering and chemistry. And that allows us to really put together a team that can build plants on spec and on time. And on top of that, we've got a great independent board of directors who have got collectively tens to hundreds of years of experience on Wall Street, managing companies, public companies. And again, that oversight allows us to really make sure that we perform to the highest of our potential.
Paul, it truly has been a big year for ASP Isotopes. H.C. Wainwright came out in December with a $3.25 price target on your company. That was an initiation of coverage. Tell us, what is the essential value proposition, Paul, and why should investors take an interest in ASP Isotopes right now?
Isotopes is a really unique, challenging industry to get involved in. The barriers to entry here are huge. And so we have a position already in this industry, and we're going to grow that. And our goal is to become a dominant supplier of isotopes in the future, both for isotopes that are currently needed today, as well as isotopes that are going to enable technologies in the future, such as green energy and quantum computing. And listen, we hope to deliver substantial investor returns while we do that as well. So that's, there's a lot of news flow coming up in the next 12 months too.
Paul, thanks for checking in with us. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you for your interest. I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Now, to get more information on ASP isotopes, visit aspiinfo.com. You can also call 1-800-RedChip to speak to a specialist if you have any questions. We also have a free weekly newsletter you can subscribe to at redchip.com, featuring emerging growth companies like ASP Isotopes. Small cap stocks are among the most volatile asset class. Some of the companies featured on this show are RedChip client companies, and we may own stock in these companies. So please always read our disclosures at redchip.com. Thanks for being with us today. We'll see you next week with some new exciting emerging growth company.
Hello, my name is Kong Do. I am President and CEO of BioVie. We recently provided top-line data readout for our phase 3 in Alzheimer's, which provides us really exciting directional information on the impact of the drug. Our primary endpoint is something called CDR-SB, and we saw that patients treated with 3107 experienced a 68% slowing of cognitive decline compared to placebo after being treated for 6 months. To kind of give you a comparison, the FDA approved the drug Leqembi for a 27% reduction of decline after 18 months of treatment. Now, this is not meant to be a head-to-head comparison. You can't do that without a head-to-head clinical trial, but it kind of gives you a kind of directional information on the potential impact 3107 could have. And when you look at the other functional and cognitive assessments, such as ADAS-Cog, CGIC, ADCOMS, and so forth, 3107 was comparable to, or it had greater results than what's been reported in clinical trials for the other drugs. In addition, 3107 appears to be having an impact on biomarkers. It is reducing TNF-alpha, right, so reducing inflammation. It seems to be having an impact on p-tau and amyloid burden, and it's reducing DNA methylation. So patients treated with 3107 experience a reduction in DNA methylation equivalent to 4.6 years compared to placebo treated, right? So this is considered age deceleration as measured by the DNA methylation skin blood clock. And as exciting as the results are, we unfortunately had a bit of a setback. Due to suspected misconduct at 15 of our clinical sites, we had to exclude a good number of patients. So as a result, our study ended up being underpowered and we missed on statistical significance. So what we have done is reported these 15 sites to the FDA for their investigation, and we are making plans to enroll additional patients into this trial so that we can achieve statistical significance and build upon the promising results that we're seeing here. So turning to Parkinson's, our phase 2B for NE3107 in Parkinson's showed that patients that were treated with 3107 and levodopa experienced greater motor control than those treated with just levodopa alone. So those who are under 70 years old and treated with 3107 experience over a 6-point advantage on the motor score of the UPDRS scale. And that's a huge advantage, right? And the thing that got us and our experts excited is what's called the morning muscle on symptoms. Because in the morning, when levodopa typically would have worn off, none of those patients treated with just levodopa alone could get out of bed in the morning, where roughly a third that was treated with 3107 and levodopa had their muscles in the on state. So as a result, they were able to get out of bed in the morning. So that is a very, very big deal. So we are looking forward to continuing the clinical development of this by initiating a phase 2B/3 for 3107 as monotherapy, as first-line therapy sometime next year. Now, turning to BIV201, we believe this could become the first treatment for ascites. Ascites is a horrible condition that has a 50% mortality rate within 12 months because ascites is essentially end-stage liver disease. BIV201 is a novel formulation of a drug, terlipressin, that we administered through continuous infusion pump. We had a phase 2 trial underway that we terminated early because halfway through the trial, we had enough data to show that BIV201 substantially reduced ascites fluid buildup. So we have been in conversations with the FDA on how to design the phase 3 clinical trial and then move it to something called an SPA. Right? And we are very, very close to finalizing that process. We're hoping to finalize it over the course of the next few months and then hopefully start the trial early next year. So in summary, I believe BioV has the most exciting portfolio in biotech today. In NA3107 for Alzheimer's, I believe we could potentially have the first truly effective drug for Alzheimer's. In Parkinson's, NA3107 could become the first treatment for the disease since levodopa was introduced over 5 decades ago. And BIV201 could become the first treatment for ascites. So a very exciting portfolio. I believe we represent a buying opportunity right now. And for the first time ever, I do not possess material non-public information, and the lawyers cleared it for me. So I actually purchased shares in the company this past week, right? And I believe those who truly understand the science are excited about our portfolio. Hopefully you will understand it for what it is. It's a buying opportunity for the long term. So thank you very much for listening and learning more about BioV. You can learn more about what we do by going to biovpharma.com. Thank you very much.